Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and today I wanted to go over some information you should probably know while jumping into Diablo 4. Whether you're a new player or a returning one, there's so much going on that you'd be forgiven if you actually missed out on some of this. So jumping right into it, one of the first decisions you make is whether to play on World Tier 1 or 2. Now you can always adjust that in the future, but while you're starting your journey, there is some decisions to make that might not be as straightforward as you might think. So World Tier 2 is going to tell you that you get more experience from defeating enemies in that world tier. However, because of how much more quickly you are able to defeat enemies in World Tier 2, leveling is actually faster oftentimes, especially with good ad clear builds in World Tier 1. So keep that in mind. You also don't get any better gear from World Tier 1 to World Tier 2. So the reasons to play on World Tier 2 are you want more of a difficult experience, you want some challenge to the gameplay. You're going to be challenged by bosses and stuff, no matter what world tier you're on, especially early on before you have builds made. But if you want a challenge throughout the game, then World Tier 2 is going to provide more of that and probably get you more ready for World Tier 3. However, by the time you get to World Tier 3, you're probably going to have really good builds, really good gear, and all that kind of good stuff. So it's not going to be as much of a problem. That's just something to keep in mind because you can decide whichever way you want to go. If you want to do World Tier 2 instead of World Tier 1, that's perfectly fine. But just be aware you don't have to if you are just looking to proceed through the game as quickly as possible. Get past the campaign and get to the end game. That'll be a bit easier on World Tier 1. The other thing to keep in mind that we found as a co-op player is make sure that you are on the same quest while jumping into a party. Because what can happen is even if you are on the same quest, if you are on the same step by talking to the same person, fighting the same enemy, whatever the case may be, you could actually not get progress and you'll complete some quests and it'll give the player who is not the party leader an error and it'll say they don't get any rewards for completing that quest, which can be a major bummer because if you do that for multiple quests, you'll actually have to go back and redo all of that, even though you've already fully completed some of them. So don't do that. It's definitely something to be aware of. I think a lot of people will see that message first and foremost and then backtrack and do everything. But one of the problems I had is when I first jumped into the game, I actually started the first quest before my teammates joined me, and because they jumped in right after creating their character, they lost progress and had to redo some of the progress that we were making. So keep that in mind. It's a lesson learned for me and something that I definitely will be paying attention to going forward while playing co-op, or I will as have the party leader be the one who's the furthest behind on the story quest as well. So definitely consider that going forward. Now, some other things to note. The map is absolutely massive in Diablo 4. You're going to be walking around forever, especially on some of these quests. Don't worry about some of the side quests right now if they take you far away. And the reason being is because at Act 4, you will get a quest to obtain your mount finally. I wish this was available earlier in the game personally, but I know they want you to explore the world. They want you to battle all the enemies and explore everything on foot. So that's fine. I'm not opposed to that necessarily. But because the map is so big, it is a lot easier once you are able to get your mount and you can travel across the entire map. So don't worry about having to do that early on in the game because there are some side quests that are going to take you pretty far from the starting location and you're not really going to want to walk all that way all the time. It does feel like it's wasting a lot of time when once you have your mount, you can get there much faster. So keep that in mind, something that I definitely have been doing. If I have a quest that's close to either a fast travel point or one of my main missions, I'll go ahead and do those side quests. But the ones that are farther out, I'm saving for when I do have my mount. So that's a very important key. The other thing while we're talking about the map is make sure that you're looking at your rewards for your different areas, whether it's Fractured Peak, Dry Steps, etc., because as your renown improves, you will be earning skill points and potion capacity and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's easy to forget that you're doing that kind of passively. But if you get close, if you look at your renown and you're like, okay, I am only a little bit away from an upgrade, you can actually go and do like a stronghold or do some dungeons or whatever the case may be, because those rewards from earning the region progress are actually really, really good and very valuable. So you're going to want to do that as you're proceeding in your journey. So keep that in mind as well. It's something that I've been kind of keeping an eye on for sure, because I want to make sure that I have more skill potion, more skill points, more potions. All that stuff makes a massive difference as you're playing through the game. And honestly, I really like the strongholds, so that's helped me out a bit, because I've just enjoyed knocking them out as often as possible. And one of the main ways to upgrade your region progress is by doing those strongholds. So keep that in mind. Very, very useful information there. Another thing to look forward to, at level 15 on your class, you will actually get a quest to unlock either a new ability or something of that nature. And I would recommend doing that as soon as possible. It's the one kind of side activity that I would think everybody should do right away. For example, on the sorcerer, you actually get enchantments, which are almost passive of abilities that you can unlock that will give you benefits you might otherwise not have on your character. So it's really, really cool. I think it's something that is absolutely vital to do pretty much immediately as you get to level 15, and I would do so right away. I think it's easy enough quest, doesn't require that much challenge, but it is something that you're definitely going to want to do immediately in order to get those bonuses for your classes. Talking about classes, the other thing to keep in mind, play whatever class you want, but be flexible in your builds as you're going forward. One of the things that I've seen is a lot of people kind of want to do all of one thing, right? They want to specialize in one specific like element. For like, you want to do lightning, you want to do all frost, whatever the case may be. That is not always going to be useful across the game, because there will be some bosses who are either immune or take reduced damage to a certain element type or a certain type of damage. So keep that in mind for sure, because what's going to end up happening is that you're going to be taking on an enemy, and it's going to be much harder than it needs to be, because you only have that one type of damage, and you don't want to get stuck into a build that is solely focused on that. I think it's something that sounds like it'd be more efficient overall, but unfortunately, that's just not the case, and it's a lesson learned if you run into a damage type where the enemy is like immune, or you just don't do enough damage to really make much of an impact. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more Diablo 4 content from me going forward. I would appreciate it. My name is JoPa. I hope you have a good one, and I will catch you all later.